call the meeting to order. Would everyone please rise and salute the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We have roll call.
Here.
Counselor Warner.
Here.
Counselor McCormick. Here. Counselor Hartrath.
Here.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Here. Okay, we're going to go right into a public hearing here, and it'll be on the non-conforming building use and lots and abandonment. Do we have any questions on that, or? Okay, well,
What actually does that entail? What are you doing that for? To eliminate buildings or to get rid of structures, or exactly, you're going to force the property owners to clean up their act, or what exactly are you hearing this at?
well, I think right here's a man who can answer all your questions. It's not what you're thinking there.
What we have is occasionally what you run into is a situation where a business or a use, usually it would involve some type of commercial use, predated zoning. So it was in existence before zoning ever came into being. And, but under the zoning laws, it technically shouldn't be there. You know, for example, I think a typical example would be a bar in a residential zone, let's say. Well, as long as they're operating, they have every right to continue that use because they predated zoning. They're considered grandfathered. What we're trying to deal with is a situation where that use ends. Either maybe the place burned down, the owner went out of business, just closed the shop up, and under our present zoning laws, there's no time limit in which this person would have to consider restarting this use up. Now, if it was a conforming use, that wouldn't be a problem. But since it's a non-conforming use, ideally, the town would like to see that use eventually fall within what's considered to be the use for that area. So what most municipalities have is a time limit. They're saying that if after a year or 2 years or something like that, the owner has made no effort to restart that use up, then that use would be considered abandoned, and they would have to have the use would then become conforming. Basically, you lost that right, that grandfathered right, after a period of time. Or at least you would have to come back before the town. You know, it's just not an open-ended right. You would have to come back for a variance or something like that. So I think the thing to think about is this may only apply to one. I only know of personally 1 or 2 situations in the last 5 years where it might have even applied. But it is something that we need to have because once in a while a case may come up where this comes into consideration. I think the most recent example where it could possibly have been considered would have been the Doty Oil situation. Okay, so it only applies to what would be considered a non-conforming use that's grandfathered in, which there are very few of, that has been abandoned. And what we're trying to do is, first of all, what constitutes abandoned? We have to come up with some type of definition. And 2, should there be some type of time limit where if it's been abandoned for a length of time, at what point do they lose that grandfathered right? And that's what this basically covers.
How would it affect agricultural property? Does it affect it? Barns, so forth?
As long as, I really don't see how that would apply because it would have to be a place where agricultural property isn't permitted and that use has gone on and then it's abandoned. But agriculture, to be honest with you, is protected very much under New York State law.
Okay, that answers my question. Thank you. Thank you.
Selma Tormina, Kingdom Road. Last year, I was sitting on the planning board, and we had our zoning update meeting. I think we discussed this at quite length about a time limit and how long it should be. A year really isn't very fair, and I have a real problem with this, and I believe that there were many people that were involved at that time that had a real problem with this. What if you have someone, they die, it's left into the estate. The estate has no will. It goes into probate. It goes on for a year or 2 years. Finally, the state settles the probated estate, and it comes up that finally it gets left to family members. 2 years has passed, nothing could be done with the property. Now you've got individuals of the family who have been now left this property, can't do anything with it, it's lost its value because let's say, example everybody likes to use as a bar. All of a sudden it no longer has use as a bar, what are you going to do with it? You've lost the real estate value that it has. In regards to this man's question, for agricultural purposes, we do still have agricultural land that is actively being used within residential zones for agriculture. Where Kevin says that that wouldn't be affected, that's untrue. As long as that parcel is still being operated as a farm, mini farm, whatever, if that farm, for whatever reason, ever stops being used, and there are many in this area that have, where there is a lot of acreage left to that parcel, because they have been rezoned, you can no longer go back in and put a farm in there. And sometimes it may be just a duration of families needing to sell the property, move on, and the new owner might not want to run a farm, okay? And maybe the new owner's only there for a year or two. Then they go to sell it, they have no value base there as agricultural land whatsoever, because now you want to take it away from them. This is a right that's being taken away, and people ought to be aware of that. These are grandfathered properties in our zoning ordinance now, and they are trying to do away with them. And if they get away with it, they're taking rights away from individuals in this town that have no idea that it's happening. I, for one, am totally against it. If you're going to put a time span on it, better be long enough for people in case somebody did die. It's left in a situation where the family can't disperse of it right away. Give them enough time to be able to do something with that property. I mean, what are you going to consider abandonment if it's up for, Doty oil is not a good example. There's been somebody in there actively using that all along, whether it's for storage of machinery or whatever, that has not been abandoned. So what is Mr. Conley's abandonment in regards to that building? There hasn't been any. And I know I'm right across the street. I see what goes on over there every day. I don't know how you can classify Doty oil as being abandoned. It's not an abandoned building. It's not an abandoned use.
One question, if you read on the second page of the proposed resolution, read number 2, it tells you, it answers your question as far as your, number 2, excluding interruptions, but, yeah, or during the settlement of an estate. If it takes 20 years to settle an estate, it's still, if you read number 2, you can explain what you're saying. And as far as, we're only trying to conform to what New York State says in past court battles, many of the town codes build in a presumption of discontinuance, where the property owner has continued the non-conforming use for a stated period of time. The courts have upheld presumptions providing the time frames are reasonable. A 12-month time frame is a good rule of thumb. And if you check the Fairmore Realty Company versus LaBouffe 201, miscellaneous 220, affidavit D 279 AD 79, you'll find that the court case that the state uses up to hold a 12-month rule of thumb.
Well, that's the state. We're not the state. We're the town of V0lney. It's the idea of whether the people of the town of V0lney are really aware of what it is that's happening here and the right that's being taken away. And the right that's being taken away is a grandfathered use that was there before zoning was put in. When zoning was put in, these uses were fine at the time, and most of them are fine now. You're using two very limited properties within the town of V0lney, and you could be wiping out a potential for good commercial property. Maybe it's not located where you want it to be, but it's still there, and you're taking a right away. You're taking another right away from the individuals of this town, and I don't think it's right. It's hard enough to keep the values of the property up around here. When you take a use away, and that's what that building was built for, or that's what it's been used for the last 10 or 20 years, and for 1 year duration, it might be empty, because either you're trying to relocate a new business in it, or the people are trying to sell it, or for whatever reason. 1 year is not long enough, not in this area. You have downtown Fulton, which if you go by all of this, most of downtown Fulton, is considered abandoned. You want to take away something like Doty Oil, it's on a main state Route 3. You've got convenience businesses all through there, and you want to use that as a point of reference. It's ludicrous. It's sitting on Route 3. It's a perfect commercial property. You've got half of Route 3 zoned as commercial business. You've got the other part of it on the other side is industrial. And you've got the lower end going towards Fulton as residential. That whole strip makes no sense whatsoever, but we want to take away their grandfathered right of being the type of building and dwelling that it is. Is that right?
I don't think anybody really trying to take it away, but here.
Briefly, I don't know, I wonder, I don't think this thing has been read closely, because also it has in here an exception that if somebody is attempting to sell the property, and as long as the sign is still there and they're actively attempting to sell it, it's not considered abandoned. If it's not if they totally discontinue trying to sell it or just take the sign away and stop. But I think one thing needs to be made clear here. I have to disagree respectfully with this idea that we're taking a right away. All we're doing is putting in the right of review. Basically, as long as that grandfathered operation, again, it only applies to grandfathered operations that are outside of what is allowed in that zoning, but they pre-existed it. As long as they operate, they have every right to operate. Nobody can go in there and say, gee, you're not in conformance with the zoning. They have that right. What we're saying is if they discontinue, they abandon within the terms that are here, and I think the terms are we're leaving a lot of loopholes. We're leaving a lot of options here, that they then have to come before somebody and explain why, and that gives the public, in my opinion, the right to review what they're trying to do. They can, let's say they're operating, we'll use a bar. Let's say they're operating a bar and there's residences all around it. There's nothing those people can do because that pre-existed zoning. Let's say the bar partially burns down, guy has no insurance, and it's just basically abandoned. 2-3 years go by, 4 or 5 years go by, somebody else comes in there and wants to reopen it as a bar. I think at that point, the town is well within its right to say, now wait a second, that place has been abandoned, it has not been actively used. The public then should at least have the right, the public, the neighbors, the community, have the right to review what this person's trying to do. You know, they do have, anyone who's grandfathered in has the right to continue that business. But if they discontinue it or abandon it, I think giving the municipality the opportunity to review what the plans are at that point is certainly not something that's unusual in this area. I just don't think it's unusual. I don't think we're taking a right away, but we are at least giving the community the opportunity to then have some say when something's been abandoned and somebody else plans on continuing it again. Thank you.
Jim.
Tom Irosh. Would you interpret for me item number 6 on your definitions of abandonment, please? Someone to interpret that, exactly what that means.
How about the writers? I don't have my sheet here.
That is, the building is not occupied. An attempt is being made to sell the facility as a non-conforming use, which means as the use that it was, with signage on the site. Such attempt has exceeded 1 year, and the building is not being actively maintained and is falling in a state of physical repair. That means that they might, in the case where they have made an attempt to sell the site, but then they basically stop.
Well,
And
it
they
says
let
the
it-
sign is on the property, right? It says the signage is on there. The concern I have is, and if I read this correctly, what this is saying is, I am attempting to sell a piece of property. I have a sign on that property. It's been there for over a year. However, after that year is up, I am out of luck. because my right for non-conforming use has been taken away from
Jim,
me
you're
by the
an
town
English
board.
teacher.
That's
Make
what
sure
this
you
says.
get the pronunciation and the periods and the commas in the right.
That's exactly what I'm
The
looking at.
building is not occupied.
Yes?
An attempt is being made to sell the facility as a non-conforming use with signage on the site, period. Such
Absolutely.
attempt has exceeded 1 year, and the building is not being actively maintained and is falling in a state of physical repair.
Such attempt has exceeded 1 year. My attempt to sell it has exceeded 1 year. That's what this says.
And you are no longer maintaining the property, and it is falling in a state of repair.
Is not being actively maintained. Very
Right.
possibly because I've run out of funds to actually do that. But I'm still attempting to sell it. I'm still maintaining to sell that property in the non-conforming use. And what you're telling me is I can't do that.
No, we're not saying it. The zoning update committee, and I agree with them, and the planning board, felt that that can be stretched, as many people can say. They can say that something's been abandoned for 20 years, and they can say, hey, well, we've been trying to sell it. We just took the sign down, we felt that there had to be some type of limit put on that. And again, all that does then is if at 5 years later, they would be subject to review. We're saying, if you're physically attempting to sell the property, and you're maintaining the property, and you're, keeping the landscaping somewhat, then that's fine. That's considered to be actively selling it. But at some point, we felt there needed to be a point where it's not considered to be actively sold. If the sign's been removed, if the building is basically not being maintained, if the landscaping, what does that do? That we have to have some point where, again, the code enforcement officer specifically can say, no, under our terms, you have now abandoned the site. And I want to throw something else out here. I don't think that there is going to be a bunch of uniform goose-stepping people these are local townspeople who are our code enforcement officers. I don't think that they're going to be out to use this thing to put people down. What we're trying to do is put into, I think this is probably the loosest definition of abandonment of any of the ones we looked at.
Maybe not, Kevin, but when I served on the town board, I fought against this. I'm fighting against it now.
Okay.
I disagree with you completely. I have a real problem with saying, and you're right, I teach English. And what this says is, that sign is on the property. After a year, I've lost the use of that property unless someone, very benevolent, sits there and says, you may continue with your non-conforming use. And I really have a problem with that. I had a problem when I sat on the town board, and I have a problem with it now. I think we're trying to, in some way or another, drive our small businesses out and make this a town where small business doesn't have an opportunity. And this really upsets me.
Jim, it says in section 2 that if the use is non-conforming and an interruption as listed above should exceed a period of 12 months, all the owner has to do is the owner shall inform the code enforcement officer in writing of his intentions to reestablish such use.
Absolutely.
So all you gotta do is let them know in writing that you're trying to sell it and you wanna continue the non-conforming use.
Greg, read number 6.
I did read 6.
Yeah, I mean, why
6 contradicts 2.
why does number 6 have to be in there if you've protected yourself with the 12 months up above? What if you got somebody that's hurt in a nursing home, has no family to take care of the property, puts it in a realtor's hands, the sign goes up, so the lawn's not mowed or something, or he doesn't plant new shrubs, or he can't paint the building. All of a sudden, you're giving somebody the power in this township to go in and say, oh, sorry, you're not conforming anymore, and we're gonna switch you to whatever the zoning is at that point in time. Let's face it, it's a small community. People know each other. If one person doesn't like the other, guess what? They're out of luck, and they'll lose their non-conforming use. If they like you, you're fine. You may not want to admit that. I've been involved in politics long enough in this town that I know that's true. And it worries me when you're taking away a right that is there. And when the town is so small that the decisions that are being made by a handful of people that, yes, from time to time, they change who's in and who's out and all that. But during that 1 year period, it doesn't change. And they could change the use on you, your value of your property drops. If you're an office building in the residential zone, you're an office building, okay? And all of a sudden, because you're hurt, you can't maintain it, you've got a sign on it, you've been trying to sell it, the real estate market's bad, and and it's an office building. You have now just appreciated the value of that real estate in half. Not fair.
Well, I think we're putting a lot of emphasis on this 12 months, and at the end of 12 months, we get the bulldozer out, demolish it, and it's done. That's not the intent of it. The intent was is to put a time period down. There's still other avenues. You can put a letter into the board. You can also go in front of the board, and the planning board, and you can tell them what's going on. So it's not something where everything is going to, at the end of 12 months, is just going to change.
Right now, the way that it is in our zoning, an individual in this township that owns property that is a non-conforming use does not have to come before you and ask permission to keep that use in force. You understand? You're taking a right away. You're making them do something that they don't have to do right now. And they shouldn't have to do. They should not have to do. You are not talking about a handful of properties, as Mr. Conley would like you to believe. I'm a realtor. I'm out there every day. I know how many non-conforming uses there are in this town. I know how many you people could classify as abandoned according to this zoning ordinance. I know how many people would lose their real estate value in this town if this zoning ordinance were true. And I know how many people could be affected by the politics that go on in this town. Now, whether you want to accept it or not, it's fact. And it can happen, and all you're doing is hurting the people in this town by putting that in there. You're not benefiting them. Those uses are there, everybody's happy with them right now. All of a sudden, a handful of people came up with this idea a year or two ago, wanted to put it in, they got an argument then, which was a good argument, and I'm giving you the same argument now. You are taking away the right they have, and you're making them come before you, or Kevin, or Dan, or the zoning board, or whoever, and ask permission to keep that non-conforming use, and it isn't fair.
I'd just like to bring up that our zoning laws came into effect, I believe it was, 1971, and didn't actually become legal technically by 1976, something like the 78. So we were talking about largely commercial uses that were in existence prior to 1978, that now are in existence in zones that are not classified for that use, and that are basically abandoned. Now, I'll be honest with you, what office building are you talking about? Because I don't know of a single
There's-
office building
And which one would that be?
that was operating prior to 1976 and that has been abandoned and that is in a zone that's not classified, that would not permit an office building.
And which would that be?
That's what I'm asking you. You mentioned it.
I'm not going to single out
Okay,
any
to be
individual in
frank,
this
I'm
town.
going to stand by what I feel. I feel that there are extremely in operation at this time. I think there are extremely few. To be honest with you, my concern would involve more the already abandoned uses that may exist in different parts of this town, possibly residential areas that might have had a use at one time in the past that would be considered at this point, if it was to reopen, maybe to be very unwelcome in that area. And technically, if you want to follow our laws the way it is now, you can have something that basically you didn't even know existed and have somebody come back and resurrect it because we have no sunset provision. That's what my concern is. Again, I don't think, this is a small town, and a lot of people know a lot of people. And I guess I tend to look at it from a different perspective. I don't think it is the intentions of these people to do other people wrong. I don't think it is the intentions of people to use this to get at people. I think the intentions of this is to try to help the town and improve the town as time goes on. To possibly prevent some outsider from coming in and taking advantage of a loophole in our laws to bring into effect, to resurrect a use that possibly was abandoned years ago and would be very unwelcome and not give us the opportunity to even review it. Again, I don't think that this, even if somebody did fall afoul of this regulation, which I got a feeling if this is passed tonight, we're going to see this used once a year if we're lucky, in my opinion, and probably not that much. But even if it did, it doesn't take away their ability. It just makes them have to come before, as so many other people do on a regular course of action, come before the zoning board or the planning board for review. Have to go see the code enforcement officer. If nothing else, I think what it does is if a use is abandoned, it allows the code enforcement officer to have some influence as to when it's resurrected to ensure that possibly it's in conformance with up-to-date regulations. Possibly if it's reopened, we might say, you know, when that thing existed 20 years ago, it didn't have, the parking regulations were a lot different then. Now, if you're gonna reopen it, we want you to do something about your parking, or we want you to maybe give a little more consideration to landscaping, you know, things like that. I think it at least gives the town the ability to have some say. But I think that most residents who have dealt with Dan, or possibly myself, and I think a lot of the other people, this is not, I question the concept that this is gonna be used to hurt people. I don't think so. I would like to look at it from the perspective that this is a positive move, a proactive move with the intentions of helping people in the town. Thank you very much.
Can I just make one more comment? One of the things that was brought to the attention of the zoning update committee last year when this all was brought about was a piece of property that is directly across from Mr. Conley, which used to be a gas station. As it stands right now, if this zoning ordinance doesn't get passed, somebody could come in on Route 57 and put a gas station in there. Would Mr. Conley like that? No. He stated so. He would like to see this put in, if for no other reason, so a gas station couldn't get put in. And for him to insinuate that I'm sitting here saying that I think you people are trying to put this in just to hurt people, that is not what I said. I said that this will hurt people because you're taking a right away. I'm not saying that anybody here, him, Dan Russo, anybody, Bart Foster, no one that is in political power right now of any kind or in an official capacity for this town is acting this law to hurt anybody intentionally. I'm telling you as a realtor, that is my job. I'm a professional. I know the town. I sell property in it every day. I probably know better than your zoning board, your planning board, or even your building code enforcement officer, what uses are out there that are non-conforming and what would be considered abandoned at this point in time, because I'm in those properties every day. I know how many people this can hurt. I don't think Mr. Conley has any kind of conception. And when he says that it's just commercial property, it isn't true. One of the people that we had problems with last year, which was, one person was Rosemary Pringle and the other one was Ann Gardner, that used to be an active farm. Those people over on that road will not even allow chickens, geese, anything, horses, they don't want horses, they don't want cows, they don't want anything. There's over 27 acres sitting there with a barn and everything else. She can do nothing with, simply because that area was rezoned. That area is mostly wide open land, and all of her land is behind her. And when it comes to disclosures for real estate, Kevin, believe me, everything's got to be disclosed nowadays. They're working with a realtor, and legally, I told the board this that was in power at the time when they bought that site down off the river. There's disclosures that need to be filled out. They're legal forms, and when they're filled out, you're going to know if there's something in your area. You're going to know if there's something that could potentially bring down the value of your home. And I don't know of too many sites in V0lney that are non-conforming uses that are bars. How many are there, Kevin?
That have been abandoned?
Yeah, that you're considering abandoned at this point in time. How many are there?
I think there's two that I'm aware of.
So there's two in this whole town. And because of those two bars and Doty Oil, you people want to pass a zoning ordinance that states that you're going to do away with all of these non-conforming uses, some of which are nothing but little office buildings in a residential zone, some of which are nothing but little bitty beauty salons in a residential zone, or what have you. You want to do away with all that because of two barns in the size of a township of the town of V0lney.
No, I want to do it
I'm telling you,
because I
real
think it's
estate
the right thing to
values
do.
will drop for those property owners.
In closing, I'd like to simply reinforce what Don said. I felt this way 2 years ago, and I felt it last year, and I feel it now. I don't see a reason for this.
Any more comment on that part? Give a motion to adjourn the first part of it.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second it.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Counselor McCormick? Aye. Counselor Hartranft?
Aye.
And Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye. Okay, now we're gonna go into another public hearing here. I'm gonna do a roll call.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye, here.
Counselor Warner?
Here.
Counselor McCormick? Here. Counselor Hartranft?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye. Okay, this one is on the public hearing on special use permits. You wanna read that one off? I don't have it here.
Basically, all it is, we got special use permits, and right now they're controlled by the ZBA, and to get a special use permit, you have to have a public hearing before the ZBA, and then when you go to, if it's granted, you have to go before the planning board. We changed it to special use permit to be under the jurisdiction of the planning board, so the residents and everybody will only have to have one public hearing and make the process shorter. We took the state definition of the special use permit and going to insert that in the definitions. It's basically what it is, and we're going to move the appropriate sections of text from the zoning board appeals sections over to the planning board section. It's basically just to move the literature around, get the jurisdiction to the planning board, just under one board instead of two.
Any comment on that one?
That makes
Okay.
sense.
All right.
Anyone else? I'll make a motion, we adjourn that one.
I'll second.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Mr. Warner?
Aye.
Mr. McCormick? Aye. Mr. Hartranft?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye. Okay, now we'll call our regular town board meeting to order.
Do you want to do roll call again?
Well,
Or do you just want to say they're all still here?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Your start first.
Resolution 9666, approval of minutes. Moved at the regular meeting March 14th, 1996, and the special town board meeting March 28th, 1996. Minutes having been distributed be approved without reading.
I'll second it.
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Mr. Hartranft?
Aye.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye.
Resolution. $94.97. General fund and vouchers 76 through 100 in the amount of $21,353.07. Highway fund, having been audited, be approved for the supervisor be authorized to pay them from designated accounts. I'll move it. I'll second it. Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Counselor Hartranft?
Aye.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye. Anyone have any communications? Okay, we'll go right into committee reports. Planning board?
The last meeting of the planning board was last Monday night. At this time, we really have no applications before us, so I would encourage, if there's anybody that's planning any business that needs to come before the planning board, this is the time to let us know, because things are probably gonna get pretty busy later on in the year. We're at the moment here, where I need to get in touch with the other planning board members just to clarify the date for future meetings. We'd like to change it, you know, we're running into problems with the fact that the court night is on the same night. So I will notify the board and get a notice published when we get our new date together. So over the next couple days, we'll be deciding when we're gonna be meeting in May and through the rest of the year. But other than that, like I said, we have no applications before us at this time. Thank you.
Zoning board?
Zoning Board of Appeals held its regular monthly meeting on Wednesday, April 10th at 7 p.m. here at the V0lney Town Hall. We had a request by Mrs. Shirley Hammond. She would like a use variance to operate an open-air flea market on Sundays, the months of May through September, Sunday only and months of May and September only. After looking over our zoning laws, the zoning board empowered me to check out this situation with an attorney. And I'm to get back to Mrs. Hammond as soon as I find out what the attorney has to offer us on this. Also on the agenda was a request for an area variance by Thelma Tormina on her property. Unfortunately, she was not present by the time we ended our meeting, so as soon as I can talk to the rest of the board and so forth, I will get back to Mrs. Tormina about having a meeting. That's all I have.
Code enforcement?
For the month of March, we issued permits for 3 homes, fees collected total $415. Permits for 3 mobile homes for a total of $421. Permits for 2 additions for a total of $96. 1 commercial building, which was a hangar at the airport for private use, for a total of $1,200. And 3 miscellaneous permits for a total of $110. Total permits for the month of March were 12. Total fees collected $2,242. We also issued 2 certificates of occupancy. We did 4 new construction inspections, 3 fire safety inspections, and 14 housing and zoning inspections for a total of 21 inspections. On violations reported, we had 1 for too much garbage on a property, 2 for excessive junk on a property, and 4 for faulty septic systems, which were referred to the health department for further investigation. We currently have a total of 10 violations that are under investigation. On a quarterly report for the first 3 months of 1996, total building permits issued are 17. This was an increase of 4 permits over 1995. Total fees collected, $2,762. That was an increase of $690 over 1995. Total certificates of occupancy issued for the year are 5. Total inspections done, new construction inspections done, 51. Total zoning complaints, 12. Orders of remedy issued were 6, and we currently have 1 case pending in court. Thank you.
Dog control?
For the month of March, we received 107 calls, complaints. 10 dogs were adopted out, 0 dogs were redeemed, 0 dogs were euthanized, 12 dogs were picked up, there's 2 dogs at the kennel now, 4 dog bites were, or 5 dog bites were reported, and 4 dogs reported lost. For maintenance over there, all I'm trying to do is get the weather, clean up around the yard and stuff.
Recreation?
I had 20 children attend the egg decorating on March 30th, and I'd like to thank Rhonda, Magda, and Gregory Georgiadis for helping me clean up afterwards. Tomorrow night we have country line dancing here at the town hall, and it's from 7 to 9, and everyone's welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. Historian? highway?
14 days machinery maintenance, 14 days plowing and seeding, 2 days coal patching, 2 days driveways, 5 days repair and install signs. Wages for March 1996, $30,380.93. Materials and parts, $21,353.07. And the total expenditures for March 1996, $51,734. And that's submitted by Bob Curfein, Highway Superintendent.
Okay, do we have any old business? Ken? I guess this would be under old business. And that would be the street lighting there that they requested on the Mucky Road and Silk Road. I believe we made a request to go with a sign instead of the light.
Sign been put up yet?
I don't think it's,
Well, it hasn't been addressed here at the town board meeting, so it'd be better to address it here than the highway superintendent can go forward with the change in the signs. And that was on top of the hill there, Bob, where there's a T sign to put a stop at, take that down, put a stop ahead sign there. I don't have it out here, but we also got a letter from Niagara Mohawk saying our street lighting by, was it 1997 is gonna go up 8%. And this wasn't figured in the budget, so we were hesitant to add another light when our street lighting bill is gonna go up automatically. They give us a cost, what it would be for the year and everything, but still, if their rate goes up, we gotta make sure we got enough to pay for these other street lights.
any other old business?
I just clarify that 8.3%, that it may go up 8.3% if the power choice doesn't go through, that Dr. Mock has requested. So that what they did is they sent us a letter to say that possibility in 1997, if they get their rate increase, it may go up 8.3%, but it may not.
New business.
Well, I can bring it up. Last night, I was asked by a resident on the Kingdom Road about some kind of signs around the March Road, because he says they come down there and that is a hill there, and people coming up through there, and somebody in the sign off the March Road's a yield sign instead of a stop sign, Bob, that if they're starting to turn, there could be an accident. I said, well, definitely. I said, they're not heeding to the 45-mile-an-hour speed zone to start with, but they think that, well, he thinks there should be more signs put up to address the situation. Intersection ahead, slow down, I don't know, a stop sign on...
Yeah, I was going to say, I think there's a sign that says dangerous intersection.
The yield sign changed to a stop sign. I said, well, we can talk with the highway superintendent on, just wanted to bring it up that I was asked about some signage on the Kingdom Road. And someplace we do have it written down, don't we, Barb? And remember the signs on that other resolution for the speed limit changed that don't get
The one we looked
included? It doesn't get included with that resolution.
The one we looked at today. Yeah.
Any other new business? Petitions. we can go into resolutions. This one left blank. Okay, I'll read it anyway. Resolution 9668, Pride in Community Weeks. Move that the Town of V0lney proclaim May 11th, 1996 through May 27th, 1996 as Pride in Community Weeks. We are asking all property owners to do projects rather than small or large, such as painting their house and landscaping, painting flowers, etc. Assistance is available through the NBA by calling Debbie Sanders at 598-1280, extension NBA. And we do have applications in the clerk's office for anybody that's interested in. What this is I believe there's some free labor available to the townspeople, you know. I think you could get 3 or 4 people that come out and help you and work with you, and it's like in a 4-hour time limit, though. But they do insist that someone's there to make sure what they're doing is the right thing.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that, or?
No, I just, if I could just make a comment. All of us realtors got the notification of this too by the residents or businesses, either or. They've got the youth coming out to do this, but you do have to be within the Fulton School District
right,
in
I'm
order
sorry,
to
I should
qualify
have mentioned
for
that.
it.
That
And
is
as long
on the
as they supply
application.
the supplies and the materials and all that, they're supplying the labor. But they want it visible from public access, like from the road or something. They want it something that you can see from the street.
Can we get a roll call?
Aye.
Counselor Warner,
Aye.
Counselor Hartranft,
Aye.
Counselor McCormick,
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye.
Resolution 96-69, resubmit petition on lowering speed limit on Kingdom Road. Move to resubmit the petition from the people of the Kingdom Road to reduce the present speed limit of 55 and 45 miles per hour to 35 miles per hour from the intersections of County Route 57 and Kingdom Road to the intersection of County Route 45 and Kingdom Road town line.
I'll second it.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Counselor Warner,
Aye.
Counselor Hartranft,
Aye.
Counselor McCormick,
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye.
Resolution 96-70, liquor license for Fulton Motorsports Incorporated, formerly Fulton Speedway. Move to issue the liquor license pursuant to 64 subdivision 2A of the Alcoholic Beverage Control Law for a ballpark beer license.
I'll second that.
We missed discussion on the last one. We've got to check, see if there's any discussion on this one.
Any discussion on that one? Yes.
What is a ballpark beer license? Do they have ball games up there and you sell beer?
No, that's the type of license that's issued, that's all, you know.
They don't, they're just renewing the license
Yes.
they have?
I think it's to be consumed on the premises, what they call a ballpark license.
Counselor Pierce,
Aye.
Counselor Warner,
Aye.
Counselor Hartranft,
Aye.
Counselor McCormick,
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye. Resolution 96-71, second notice property fee. Move the adoption of the resolution pursuant to section 987-1 of the real property tax law that the town of V0lney is hereby authorized to impose a $2 service charge to cover the expense of mailing out a notice of delinquency to taxpayers.
Well, I'll second it for discussion.
Is public allowed input in these discussions or not? I haven't been here, so I don't know.
Yeah,
May I comment?
sure.
All the other townships, I believe, have $1 charge to begin with. 2 years ago, I argued against this. This year, I'm arguing against, and last year I argued against it, and I'm certainly arguing against it now. It's just another, I don't understand why we want to charge a person another fee to tell them that they owe their tax money. I've never understood that. They come in, they pay their taxes. Why do you assess them why do we assess them another $2? I don't understand that.
That's only for the people who don't pay their taxes.
Well, it's for people who don't pay their taxes up to a certain date. And if you don't pay your taxes up until 1st of March, or March, is it March 15th? There's no date in here, so I don't have any idea what the time limits are on this. There's no date in here. Date. Because the other townships I know, because I own property in various townships, and I know that they have a time limit, and there's a specific date that by that date, if you don't submit tax monies, then you're assessed an extra fee. The other townships, it's $1. And I object to that too, but.
This comes from the tax collector. Barb, when is the date she has to send out her second notice? January 31st?
No.
No, she's sending them now, right?
No, it's,
No, her
I
books are
think it's
closed, everything's gone.
March
to Swivel.
15th, isn't it? I think it's March 15th. I think it's March 15th. She sends them out after that, I think.
The second notice?
Yeah. Because it says right on your taxes if they're not paid by March 15th, but you have till the end of March to pay them without,
But the law says they have to send a second notice.
They have to.
I do know that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it says right here, and I took this right off of the law. It's pursuant to section 987. They have to send it out.
You don't know what the date is, whether it's March 15th?
It is. She just sent them out just probably 2 weeks before she left.
Any more discussion on that? You had something you wanted to say, Jess?
Well, when it comes to a vote, you know how I feel about it.
Okay.
Are we ready to vote?
Yeah.
Okay. Counselor Pierce?
I vote no. I feel that taxes are getting high enough now, and with all these EDZ benefits that have been established, with people's electric rates have increased, and residents' taxes have increased. A lot of our residents now only got $5, $6 an hour jobs. The husbands have to work 2 jobs, the wife has to work 1 job just to survive. And sometimes they can't pay their taxes on time because they might be short a few dollars. And they have to tell them to pay another $2 because they already know they're late for taxes. I just don't believe that it's needed. There's money that comes in that department through interest and like that on money, and I don't think it's needed.
Counselor Warner?
I vote no. I feel that, a second notice has to be sent out. It is an expense in that office. But if there are late payments come in, there's interest being collected, and if we have to transfer, we can take it out of money, the interest coming in.
Counselor Hartraff?
No.
Counselor McCormick?
I vote no because I think the $2 is excessive. I don't mind covering the cost of mailing out a second notice, but I think $2 is excessive.
Supervisor Lockwood?
No.
Can I ask a question on that resolution?
Sure.
If everybody voted no, who proposed the resolution?
Tax
The
collector.
tax collector.
Tax collector's office, like
Good thing they
last
don't
year.
get to vote.
They have a right to, the department has a right to propose a resolution, and we accept it.
This wasn't how we voted the other day when we were talking. So, things change.
Got another open one here. Resolution,
You want me to read it?
go
I'll
ahead.
read it. Resolution 9672, contract with Simplex. This is on the fire alarm. Move to enter into an agreement with Simplex to provide services of fire alarm service for 1 year, the cost of $867. Service performed are included in the contract and filed in town clerk's office. I'll move it.
I'll second it.
And the discussion on this, the original contract is, I think it's $586. Then they pull all the smoke detectors and clean them, calibrate them, and there's another $200 and some dollars, which brings it up to $867. And they pull all the smoke detectors, clean them, calibrate them, and put them back in, and make sure the system is working properly. It hasn't been, it's Simplex equipment. No, it hasn't been automatic, but this is a Simplex system. They sent us a quote last year, they give us a quote this year.
I guess my question is, why would they go up for bid if there's gotta be other companies to do it?
Well, technically, under so much money, it doesn't have to.
But, the reason I'm asking that is, it was just a hell of a cure over $2. Yet now you're ready to spend $800 without getting a bid in. I don't understand why.
Because, like I said, to me, it's Simplex equipment. There's nobody else. If you start integrating somebody else's services, this is the way I feel. There's only one company out there that does Simplex work. Simplex.
What you're saying is this piece of equipment,
Yeah.
right? And they're the only ones around, they're the only ones in the country that work on this particular equipment. You're gonna tell me that another company doesn't take care of Simplex also? That's like saying you buy a Sony, the only way you can have it fixed is the Sony. Hey, let's get real about it.
If they work on equipment, they buy it from Simplex. And now with the state law, you have to be with fire alarms licensed by New York State to work on them. So you're limited to how many people are licensed to work on them. And we get 2 tests a year. They pull the detector heads, clean them, and calibrate them. That's twice a year.
The answer is, it did not go out for bid. We looked at the services that they were gonna provide, we looked at the price, and it being their product, we thought it was a fair price. And we're glad you brought that up, because maybe, when it comes time to renew it, or maybe we can send out some flyers or some information and find out if there is some. It's always benefit if you can get 3 prices, because if they know they're bidding against somebody, a lot of times it'll be less, so. We're glad you brought that up.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Jess, but I believe either 2 or 3 years ago, we did that with another company.
We did.
And we didn't get the batteries changed. It was a mess, and that's why we went back to Simplex.
We didn't get the call that the batteries were bad until there was a power outage in there. We knew they were bad. The other thing is, we never got a report that the heads were ever checked, or cleaned, or calibrated.
Simplex was the most efficient, effective company.
I think it was 2 years ago or 3 years ago, we did go with somebody else. And yes, it was cheaper, but I never see a report. And when they get done, they file a report in the town clerk's office, what they did, and they check 50%, half of the smoke detectors the first time they come through, and the other half the second time they come through.
If I remember correctly, some of the equipment wasn't even working, and Simplex, we may have been checking for the battery yet.
Well, it was something small, but other than the batteries, we had to replace to have 24 volts for battery backup. And we found that out when we lost power, and when the power come back on, the system took off because the batteries were shot.
Any other discussion on that?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Counselor Hartrath? Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood.
Aye.
Resolution 9673, zoning ordinance on abandonment. I move that be ordained and enacted by the Town Board of Town of Valney, County of Otsego, State of New York as follows: an ordinance further amending Section 6 non-conforming building uses lots entitled zoning ordinance of the Town of Valney. The text, which is as follows: at the end of C, extension, alteration, reservation, page V029, such restorations will be started within 1 year of destruction or damage. Also create C-1, page Z029 of abandonment when a non-conforming building or use has been abandoned for a period exceeding 12 months, it shall not there be reestablished. B, definition, abandonment. 1, the intent of the owner to discontinue the use is apparent, such as disconnection of utilities or removal of building fixtures needed for use, or 2, the active operation of the use has ceased, excluding short-term interruptions during periods of remodeling, maintaining, or otherwise improving or rearranging a facility, or during normal period of vacation or seasonal closure, or during the settlement of an estate. If a use is non-conforming and an interruption is listed, it should exceed a period of 12 months, owner shall inform the code enforcement officer in writing of his intentions to reestablish such use, or 3, the non-conforming use has been changed to another use, or the non-conforming use has been changed to another use under permit from Zone Board of Appeals, or 5, the building is not occupied for a period of 1 year, or 6, the building is not occupied and an attempt is made to sell the facility as a non-conforming use with signage on the site. Such attempt has exceeded 1 year, and the building is not being actively maintained and has fallen into a state of physical disrepair. Resolved that the proposed ordinance amendment has been referred to the Town of Valney Planning Board for recommendations, and returned the resolution on March 11, 1996, recommending to grant approval of the proposed amendment. A, this ordinance shall take effect immediately upon the filing in the town clerk's office or immediately as by Section 133 of the town law. I move it.
I'll second it.
Any more discussion?
Any other discussion on that?
Mr. Pierce?
I'm voting for it for a couple of reasons. And it is I look at the land is increasingly becoming more and more crowded. The right of the landowner, adjoining landowners, they have just as much right to the use of their property without health, safety, and other reasons next to their property. And as people are getting tighter and tighter close together, a lot of these things that I researched on this law and everything is already in state law, but when you're on the planning or the zoning board and you don't have all these books there when these cases come before you, sometimes they don't get noticed, and you might have an undesirable situation come into your town that the town as a whole would have to pay to defend. And these court cases are pretty expensive to fight. And I believe this is a step in a direction where it has been taken to court. It's been taken to court by a realty company, and they lost the fight on it. And I'm sure the court is smarter than I am, and if they see the pros and cons of this and issue their decision in favor of the other person, then I'm clear in my mind that this is the way to protect the town as a whole. And that's why I vote yes.
Counselor Warner?
I'm going to vote yes.
Counselor Hartrath?
Voting yes.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood?
Aye.
Resolution 9674, amending special use permits. Move, be it ordained and enacted by the Town Board of Town of Valney, County of Otsego, State of New York as follows. A, an ordinance further amending section 8E special use permits entitled the zoning ordinance of the town of Alny, the text of which is follows. Change jurisdiction from the zoning board of appeals to town of Alny planning board. Page Z036E, numbers 1 to 4. Also move all related text to appropriate sections. Also Z03 under exchange zoning appeals to planning board where X equals special use permit. Also Z036E, move to page Z031 under administration and make it B1. Definition of a special use permit. Show me an authorization of a particular land use which is permitted in a zoning ordinance or local law subject to conditions imposed by such zoning ordinance or local law that will not adversely affect the neighborhood if such conditions are met. Resolved that the proposed ordinance amendment has been referred to the Town of Alny Planning Board for its recommendations and return a resolution on March 11, 1996, recommending to grant approval for the proposed amendment. This ordinance shall take effect immediately upon filing in Town Clerk's office or immediately as provided by Section 133 of the Town Law. I move it.
I'll second it.
Any discussion on that?
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Counselor Hartranft?
Aye.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood?
Aye.
Resolution 96-75, rabies shots for highway workers. Move to authorize highway superintendent to schedule rabies shots for highway employees. And didn't we just get something in the mail from the county that there's gonna be a clinic?
We gotta get,
That's just booster shots?
no, Bob, they'll also work in the regular shots. Anybody that hasn't had them, they'll work them in.
What are you talking? I'll move it.
I second it.
Any
Counselor,
questions on that?
Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Counselor Hartranft?
Aye.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood?
Aye.
Resolution 96-76, drug testing for highway workers. Move to authorize highway superintendent to schedule drug testing for highway employees.
I second it for discussion.
The highway superintendent don't authorize that.
Right, that's random, right?
No, town board.
No. It's already been authorized last year. It had to be in effect before the 1st of January. It was in effect before the 1st of January. The computer selects who goes. Circle Hospital. Nobody else.
It's done by random, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah.
What percentage of the employees? We had one so far.
Well, I think the way this is worded, Bob, it move to authorize highway superintendent to schedule drug testing for the highway employees just means that if they call, you can schedule them to leave, maybe.
Oh, yeah. It's already been done.
Leave it that way.
It's already been done.
Any other discussion on that?
I think we couldn't find it, we couldn't find it in the records or something, in the minutes? We couldn't find it in the minutes?
It wasn't in the minutes, was it, Bart?
No.
We couldn't find it in the past minutes, that's why they're doing it.
Yes.
Are all the employees randomly tested within a certain period of time?
Not scheduled, no.
CDL drivers? Are you doing just
Just whoever
CDL?
name comes up on the computer.
Well, how often do you suspect?
No
How
idea.
many names come up a month?
I have no idea.
Who does?
If he's in a pool of other employees or employers, the law requires for CDL license holders, 50% of that pool has to be tested within a year.
And is that what we're confined to?
Yeah.
And will this also, that's proactive, will this also be reactive? If somebody is involved in an accident, are they automatically tested?
Yes.
Any other discussion on that?
I just want to ask that, are all the highway employees in this pool, or is it just your CDL holders? They're all in, okay.
CDL or not, they're all in.
Should we add to that resolution at random, whatever, so it's clear, whatever the computer picks? Highway employees at random.
Sounds like he's picking up that random.
See, I think this resolution is supposed to be that,
It's a state law.
we're supposed to give him permission to enter into the
Enter into the contract.
with whomever he went into, I think it was Oswego Hospital, to do
Yes.
drug testing. I think this is what we were trying to do with this resolution.
Yeah, basically, we're just, I mean, this program's already being used now. It's been enacted, but has never been put in the minutes that the board okayed it, and it should have been. So basically, that's what we're doing with it right now.
It's supposed to be done last October. Mr. Rhodes had all the information, on board at a work session, gave me permission to give this to the hospital to do it.
But it's never got put in writing into a town board meeting. That's why, so we're just saying that we're entering into contract.
Contract with Oswego Hospital.
Can we have roll call?
Are we leaving this the way it is?
I believe so.
Okay. Counselor Pierce?
Aye.
Counselor Warner?
Aye.
Counselor Hartraff?
Aye.
Counselor McCormick?
Aye.
Supervisor Lockwood?
Aye. Do we have any announcements? Nothing, huh?
So we're going to have a special guest.
Well, they didn't make it. Okay, any public comments? Yes.
Alan Kestner, County Route 45. Under old business, you resolved last time to appraise the Great Bear property. Was that done?
No, it's not completed yet.
As you probably know, the county legislators are tonight voting on whether to impose a countywide sales tax on County of Oswego. And I was wondering if the board has any official position on that. I was also wondering, you would think at first that imposing a county sales tax would cause the city of Fulton to perhaps withdraw their request for annexation of the mall in V0lney, but if they're going to be held harmless and get to keep all the money that they have now, it would seem to me that this would probably spur them on to greater activity to try to annex the mall, because if they get to keep all the money that they collect, then it would behoove them to expand that. And it's a terrible commentary on the resolution. I don't know if there's a codicil in there or whatever talking about annexation, because it would seem to me that if the town of V0lney or city of Fulton and the city of Oswego get a guaranteed amount and they get to keep everything that they collect in their jurisdictions, then it's going to behoove them to just start expanding and gobbling up, and they're taking away from the county. It looks to me like us townies, or whatever you call somebody who doesn't live in Oswego or Fulton, are going to end up supporting this whole thing, which the towns get benefits, but they don't have to pay anything into it, and it's a big mess. It's a big mess. But does the town board have any official position on whether this should be passed or not? And I'll bet anybody a nickel that it will be passed tonight.
Well, I have no idea if it's going to be passed or whether it won't. I don't think the board as a whole has any stance on it, you know? I think the way anybody feels is probably their own, excuse me, their own personal feeling on it, you know?
I talked to our legislators on Tuesday night and expressed my concerns, and the people that called me up about being against it. I don't believe it's needed. It goes right back to competition and everything. I still believe that they keep throwing Niagara Mohawk in here. If Niagara Mohawk, if they can go by their own statements and say that they can produce electricity so cheap, then why don't they lower their rates so more people will buy the product and give them more profit? And other counties that's already got sales tax, has their property taxes gone down since they got a sales tax? Their Niagara Mohawk bills are the same rate.
But one of the politicians promised a reduction in the property tax.
This was,
You believe all politicians?
I think that was the word, guaranteed.
but as everybody knows, I was explained to Tuesday night that the county has like a $7 million surplus. And if you read in the papers where they guarantee us a tax reduction next year if the sales tax go in, they got a $7 million surplus, they can give you that thing and try to make you believe it was because of the sales tax.
No, they wouldn't do that.
My results of meeting with the two legislators that they're firmly in belief of passing it. They're firmly in support of the sales tax.
Now, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Because I asked this today. If the city of Fulton and the city of Oswego is exempt from any part of this, they're gonna get their $3 million and $7 million. How do you feel about the legislators in both cities voting on imposing a sales tax on you?
Well, that's what they're doing, and there isn't anything we can do about it.
Well, I don't feel right about it.
Well,
They've got people down there voting to put a tax on me.
I haven't felt right about a lot of things through the legislature,
But this is my opinion.
I agree with you 100%. If they're held harmless, then they shouldn't vote for it. They should abstain.
They are. They're voting for it.
Well, it's in their best interest to have it.
The state has to approve it, and it's kind of hard to imagine the state would approve that formula to go in with it. They keep their share because it would make them the first two cities in the state of New York that would keep their share of our sales tax. Can you imagine what that would do to the other counties by setting a precedent along that lines? You get Syracuse wanting to keep all their taxes. You want everybody, all these cities would want to keep their sales tax, not the outside communities.
Well, I guess it comes back to who authorized the cities to impose a sales tax. If the county legislature did that, then they cut their own throat whenever they did it.
I think that's a state law they could apply for.
The state law?
I think they applied to the state to put on a sales tax in the cities. And it was granted by the state.
Ooh. That's even worse. Because now that the county decides that if they decide to do it, they can't touch that money.
According to the way the law is written right now, yes, they could.
Well, they can?
Yeah.
Well, then they should.
It could revert back to the city, both cities getting 1.5%, or their share of, or 1.5%.
Do you know what's in the resolution tonight?
Yeah, Fulton gets $3 million and Oswego gets $7 million. I'm going by according to the paper.
Well, we may have the rest, if the sales tax drops, we're gonna owe them money then, aren't we?
We have any other comments?
The only other comment I'd like to make is when Greg got on the board here, he got us some the new chairs to us, but they're a lot better than the old chairs. He got them for the town clerk's office and for up here, and I guess he got some for the highway guys too, I believe. And it saved the taxpayers money getting furniture. And I just tell him thank you.
It's a rock and swivel too, really nice.
get
gonna
the
jump-
audience at some point. It's just kinda hard after a while.
I'm gonna jump back to announcements for just a minute, and the county legislators will be meeting here the second Tuesdays, from 7 until whenever. And they'll be meeting down in the conference room at the other end here. And there was quite a few people that showed up here, this past Tuesday night and talked with them. I'm sure when this is all over tonight, there'll be some more that wanna go in and have a few words to say with them. But our future meetings, the zoning and update meeting is April 16th at 7 p.m. And our bill signing and agenda preparation is May 7th. And our regular town board meeting will be May 9th at 7.
Move to adjourn.